Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 most carried knives of 2020. Periodically, like once every 2 to 3 months, I talk about the knives that I've been carrying the most, and I thought it'd be fun to do sort of a year-end version of this. It's interesting to take a look at, the knives that see legitimate pocket time out of my collection. I have more knives, there's just knives that I don't carry. But it's interesting to look at all of these, the ones that have made it into the pocket, and think about the ones that I've carried the most and why. So I'm going to be going through these one at a time, explain, how often I carry them, right? Each one of these knives has seen legitimate pocket time and use. But all of my knives, I keep them in pretty good condition, and truthfully, I don't use my knives crazy hard. I don't have a day-to-day lifestyle that demands that much of my knives, so these have seen more or less wear. Most of these are available, so if they're available, I'll link them right down in the description, so you can click on the links after I've talked about them, or you can just go down there and click on them if you want to. But yeah, that's how we're going to do this today. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you're enjoying the daily knife content on this channel and you'd like to support me too, there is of course a link for my Patreon right down in the description. Your support would mean the world to me. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. We're just going to clear these off one by one as I talk about them. It's not really going to be in any order until I get down to the top 5. So, first off, crazy enough, the Microtech Combat Troodon Hellhound is a knife that I periodically carry. Obviously, I don't use it very much. I just enjoy carrying this. I live in Kansas, so I can carry a big OTF, without getting in trouble. This was a gift from my wife, as many of you know, and I love this thing. It's a little bit over $600 with the Signature Series hand-ground Hellhound blade. I love this knife. It's pretty big in the pocket. It's pretty bulky, right? There is a general convenience with an OTF, right? I carry this thing strictly out of cool factor, right? It's not a knife that I'm digging around in the dirt with, but I carry it periodically. It's just not one of the top ones that I've carried this year, mostly because it is so expensive and I'm kind of protective over it. Probably the next one I'm going to knock off the list here is going to be the Spyderco Delica in the Damascus blade. This was also a gift from my wife. I love this knife. It's a more, I guess, fairly recent gift. She got this for me back in September, and I do carry it periodically. This is kind of like my dressy, like if I go to a formal event, which is not very often. I do periodically EDC this around the house, and it has seen a decent amount of pocket time, and it actually has seen a decent amount of use despite the edge not really reflecting that. I mean, you can guess what I use this knife for. Simple stuff, cutting open packages, right? I think once I did dig something out of a crevice with this, and it held up just fine. This is a beautiful knife. I don't have a problem using it. In fact, I really enjoy EDCing this because of the profile. The standard Delica is okay. I just prefer the titanium scales and the look of the blade much more than just the standard Delica. So, decent amount of pocket time. I'm sure as time goes on, I'll carry it more and more. It's just not been carried quite as much, I guess. Next up, let's do the QSP Penguin. This is the S35VN Knives Plus edition, but I do have links for the standard D2 version, which is actually even less expensive. This is a more recent purchase, and I reviewed this a long time ago, and I really liked it, and then I decided to go ahead and pick one up for myself here recently. This is easily one of the best budget knives of 2020. Easily. If you're on the fence about picking this up, don't be on the fence about it. Pick it up. The standard version of this knife comes in at 30 bucks. This is an excellent knife. Had I owned this knife, earlier in the year, I probably would have carried it more. I find myself putting this in my pocket if I'm just like walking around the house, right? I work at home. So if I'm walking around the house in sweatpants, sometimes I'll throw this knife in the pocket. It kind of rotates in and out with other stuff. Seen a decent amount of pocket time. Like I said, if I'd owned it earlier, it might see more pocket time. I don't necessarily have a specific preference with price. I carry the stuff that I want to carry. I'm attracted to knives that are inexpensive and expensive, and I carry them, either way. If I just really like it, I'm just going to carry it. Price at some point, once it becomes a carry knife, kind of goes out the window, right? I enjoy different knives for different elements. Moving on here, I think we're going to, what's the next one? Let's talk about the CJRB feldspar. I love this knife. Again, I think it's one of the best knives of 2020. Just barely squeezes in on the 2020 list. Technically, a model that was designed or conceptualized in 2019, but it didn't hit the shelves until 2020. I reviewed this knife and then gave my version of it that CJRB sent me. I gave that away, and then I ended up, again, repurchasing this knife here recently. Much the same as the other knives. Had I owned it, you know, a little bit earlier on, maybe it would have seen more time. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit more bulky than the Penguin. I might throw this in the pocket walking around the house. It also might be a knife like if I go outside to do something, or I'm going to go help somebody do something like that involves labor, right, or being outside. This might be a knife that I'm going to throw in the pocket. Again, very inexpensive knife. I want to say these come in at 40 bucks. Extremely recommendable. Those come in D2 steel and G10, and then they also have a micarta version of that knife. Moving on here, what's the next one that I'm going to knock off the list? Probably the Ritter Hog. Now, this is a size comparison knife. You can see that it does get used. It's not, I mean, I've owned this knife for a long time, right? So it does occasionally see pocket time. I'm not sure exactly what makes me reach for this over other knives, you know, just as I go through the week or go through the month. Just every now and then, right? It's not very often, but it definitely does still make it in the pocket. This is still one of the best bang for your buck American knives that are out there. We're looking at about 160 bucks for G10 and M390. This thing is excellent, excellent cutting geometry. I honestly like this knife more than the standard Benchmade Reptilian. You can get these at, this is a KnifeWorks exclusive. You can only get this at KnifeWorks. But yeah, I don't know. It's probably never going to be on the top 10 most carried again, right? I mean, right when I got it, this thing was in the pocket like every single day. But I got this a long time ago, so it just hasn't been a most carried of 2020. Moving on here, CJRB Rhea, same story as some of the other less expensive knives that I talked about here. This knife was given away, and then I actually repurchased the exact same one. I just really like the natural G10. And this knife comes in extremely inexpensive. I want to say these are $37 in G10 and 12C27N. Absolutely 100% one of the very best budget knives that's come out in 2020, and one of my favorite knives that's come out in 2020 in general. Excellent cutting geometry, nice and small. This is an around the house knife periodically. It's much the same, like kind of these two, between the Penguin and the Rhea. I just reach for them for, you know, a knife around the house. But most of the time I'm down here. Where I'm at right now is both my studio, I guess, for the channel, and it's also my home office, right? So a lot of times I'm just sitting, and there are knives everywhere. There's knives here, 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 here. There's knives all over the place, right? So sometimes I have one in my pocket when I'm down here, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm down here for the whole day, and I just don't have one in the pocket, right? But it is a knife that periodically I reach for. And again, if you're on the fence about this guy, don't be. There's another version of this knife. I don't know if it's currently available. It comes in micarta and the new AR RPM9 powder form steel through, I guess it's an exclusive steel or a proprietary steel through both Artisan Cutlery and CJRB. Yeah, definitely a knife that sees pocket time, just not quite as much as some of the others. Moving on here, a knife that has definitely seen some super hard use, but doesn't see a lot of pocket time. This is a mega beater for me. As you can tell, I haven't even cleaned it off from the last time that in fact, I've used this multiple times since we redid our roof, and I just haven't cleaned it off. I know people are like, wow, you should really clean that off. Whatever. This is a $25 knife, the Cold Steel Toughlite. This is a knife that I'm gonna use if I'm gonna be doing something that might demand such extreme use of the knife that it might break. I mean, this is essentially a throwaway knife, but the funny thing is it's standing up to all of it, right? This knife doesn't have any issues. It's fine. It still works. It's still solid, right? This is a knife that if I'm going to thrash a blade to the point where the edge will basically be useless at the edge of the day, a lot of times I'd rather do it with this knife than you know, something that's more expensive. I like the straight edge. I like being able to do my draw cuts like this. This is just AUS-8 and injection mold plastic. It's nothing special. Nice thing about AUS-8, right? Not a you know, an exotic steel or anything like that, but you can just throw an edge on it at the end of it. It might take me 30 minutes to put an edge back on that guy, and it'll be good for another day. I just haven't done it. Doesn't make it into the pocket as a general EDC knife, but does occasionally get used if I'm doing something crazy. Moving on here, we're kind of getting narrowed down. I think the next knife on the list that I'm going to be probably bumping off is the XM18 3.5 inch Harpoon Spanto in full tie. So this is a knife that I originally bought as a safe queen. And then, you know, when I was ready to move on to my next hinder, which I've done many, many times, this action on this is just... I decided to sell it to my local buddy, just like this, with the titanium. So this is an unmilled titanium scale, stonewashed to match everything. This is one of the old S35VN versions, but it's still tri-weight. I sold it to my local buddy, David. And David carried this knife and used it, so you can see, like on the pocket clip, it's kind of marked up. The edge has, can we get in there and take a look? I've stropped this a little bit, but there are a couple of little battle scars in the edge from it being used for a few things, actually. It was involved in a remodeling of a building downtown. David carried it, he said, for a few months every single day and used it for a whole bunch of stuff. There's little tiny marks on this thing all over. Fortunately, it's stonewashed and doesn't show a lot of it, right? Lockup is still in a great place, and the blade is still centered, which is just a testament to how long these things last. This is a very expensive knife. Base price $425 with the titanium scale. I had $625 in it. Sold it to David. Months later, here just a couple months back, I said, hey, do you still have that? He said, yeah, and I said, I'd like to repurchase that from you. So I purchased it from him. This makes it into my pocket a lot now. The XM18 3.5 inch being one of my favorite knives of all time, and the fact that this one is in titanium, oh, I love carrying this thing. It's super bulky, super heavy. I don't care. I love it, and I'll use it for whatever because it's already been marked up. I don't, you know, I'm not as guarded with this one versus the other XMs that I own. I got two other ones that aren't on the table, and those don't get used. But this guy, yeah, no problem. I don't care. You know, I mean, I've actually spent all the money on this, sold it for a loss, and then repurchased it. So I have a ridiculous amount of... it's done. At this point, it's like I just might as well go ahead and use it, right? I don't think I'll be getting rid of this guy anytime soon. I really like to carry it. But truthfully, just because of how long it's been since I sold it and then reacquired it, that's the only reason that it's not on the top 5 for 2020. Otherwise... let me emphasize this. This would definitely be on. This thing makes it into my pocket probably 3 days a week. Probably. Right? Great knife. God, I love that thing. Cutting geometry, super thick, super bulky, super expensive. Don't care. Love it. Oh boy. Let's see here. Probably the next one. This knife, the Ontario Rat one. God, I've had this knife forever. I've had it since the beginning of the channel. It's been beat on, it's been carried, it's been used as a hammer. It no longer has a tip because of recent events, and yeah, it's been resharpened multiple times. This knife gets used much the same as this guy. It does make it in the pocket a little bit more, right? I don't necessarily have to be doing something extreme to throw this guy in the pocket, but if I'm going out to do some hard work, I guess, and I know that this knife's going to get tossed around, bumped around, right? It might get some dirt in it. I'll carry this one, especially if I'm doing something that might require maybe just a little bit longer of a blade. I will use this knife for anything. In fact, I basically have. Honestly, I've pried with this knife, and you're not supposed to do that. But I have. Not anything extreme, but I pried apart some, it was like the wall of a cubicle, like the steel wall of a cubicle. The little hooks were stuck, and I had to push down and then pry, and I used the knife to do that. I honestly thought it might break, but no, it held up. It's fine. It just doesn't make it into my pocket as much as some of these others when I'm doing generic, I guess, just wanting a knife in the pocket. That's the thing, is that these are the knives, these last 6 here are honestly the ones that I reached for the most, right? So which one is it that I'm going to knock out? That was weird. The color changed there for a second. What was that? Is it something I did here? Anyways, so which knife am I going to knock out here? Now, a lot of you are thinking, didn't you just get that Praxis? I'm including the Praxis because I owned one for a long time and it made it into my pocket a lot. Somebody donated one in OD green and I use that thing all the time. I love the Praxis. One of my favorite budget knives ever. Didn't come out in 2020, right? This isn't a list of knives that I carry that came out in 2020. None of these came out in 2020, right? But I loved the Praxis. It's so similar to the lines of the Shaman, but it's a flipper and it's a budget knife. These are extremely recommendable. What do these come in at? 40, 45 bucks, 50 bucks, something like that. 9CR 18 MOV, which is perfectly acceptable in this price range. G10 bearings, right? A lot of you guys are wondering, it's blue. You haven't had that knife that long. I'm including it because it's still, right, if we're just talking about how many times I've carried the Praxis, right? There was a small gap between, well, it was a few months between when I gave my original one away, the one that somebody gave me. I gave that away, just one of the giveaways that I do. And then I was like, I have to have that back because I love carrying that thing. And so I repurchased it in blue, and which is a color that I really enjoy on some of my knives. And yeah, I do carry that. I still carry that quite often. So that's going to stay out here. I'm not actually going to get rid of that one. Honestly, the one that I've probably carried the least out of all of these is the SOCOM Elite, and I've been carrying this one a lot more lately. As time goes on, I will probably carry it more and more and more. The funny thing is it's the only knife that is out here that I am forced to carry tip down, which I think is okay in this case because we don't have a flipper tab. If you carry a flipper knife tip down, I think you're kind of asking for the thing to accidentally go off in your pocket because of the way it sits up against the back seam and the flipper tab. Something bumps you right there, which is more likely than any other carry position. You might accidentally deploy the blade like this in your pocket. That might go into your leg. Probably not a likely circumstance, and I'm sure somebody's going to type me up a paragraph about why I'm wrong. That's fine. Go ahead. I'll read it. I don't know. I might not read it. Sorry. I think the way that I do, and my mind's not easily changed. But yeah, that's probably the knife that's been carried the least of the ones on the table. All of these have repeatedly made lists for, most carried. Now, of these 5, though, let's talk about which ones I've carried the most. So, I love to carry this guy, the SNG Titanium. This was a gift from my good friend Jeff. Not very many automatic knives are made out of titanium, which is why I love this thing so much. This is number 2 of 40. We've talked about this many times. And my favorite steel of all time, 154 CM, and that's coupled with CPM 154. I love both of those steels. A lot of people, whenever I say that, there's people like, what? Don't you like M390? Don't you like, 20CV or 204P? Don't you like, S110V or Maximate or Rex 45? Right? Yeah, but 154 CM and CPM 154, while they're not considered like the newest, greatest, best things, they are so well-rounded. It is so easy to touch up and sharpen 154. It holds a decent edge. It's stainless. It's tough. I just love that steel. I don't have to baby it. I don't have to worry. God, I love 154 CM. People who shy away from that, you're missing out. It's such a good steel. So good. Same performance basically as Damasteel, which is made with RWL 34, which has very, very, very close to the same composition as 154 CM or CPM 154. Right? Anyways, that's probably the one that I carry the least, and it's basically just because it's so bulky. I do like big, bulky titanium knives. I like automatic knives, right? But the fact that it's bulky and the fact that it's a little bit harder to close with one hand just being an automatic knife, right? I carry it a little bit less. I do love this thing, and I do use it. I won't be super reserved with it, right? So that's probably the one that's carried the least. As time goes on, I don't know if it'll still make the list or not. It probably will sometimes. I don't know. I just love that thing. It's really cool. Next up is probably the Praxis, as far as, if we're going least to most carried. I like this. I carry it a lot. I just don't quite carry it as much as the other ones, right? Very close to this one is probably the Benchmade Mini Crooked River Custom. This was a gift from my buddy Shaker. He had this customized on the Benchmade Custom Shop with blue G10, blue pivot collar, black bolsters, right? Blue backspacer, black deep carry clip, and a satin finish CPM 20CV blade. God, this is a good EDC knife. I love this knife, and I mean, it's one of those knives that I feel like I can carry to, like, I could carry this to a Christmas party or wedding reception, or I could carry it outside, right? Man, I love this knife. It carries so well. The standard Mini Crooked River comes in S30V and has the wood and the what is it? The silver bolster, right? And it comes in at a pretty hefty price. The ones that you build on the custom shop are even more expensive. But it's worth it, guys. It's one of those knives where it's like, it's a little overpriced, but it's also totally worth it. This is such a good EDC knife, definitely. Now, honestly, by a landslide, the 2 knives that make it into my pocket more than anything else, that continue to make it into my pocket more than anything else, currently and throughout the year are the Spyderco Shaman and the Spyderco Para 3. Now, the Para 3 is a gift from my wife, Maximate and Gray G10. I've changed out the clip to the MXG deep carry clip because the standard pocket clip position, not the clip itself, but the position on the Para 3 sucks. Oh my God, it sucks. They put it right below the lane. It sucks. The MXG deep carry, if you're going to pick up a Para 3 G10, get this clip. The lightweight version of it, you don't have that problem because it's got the deep carry, what do they call it? The wire clip, right? It's fine. But the G10 one, pick this MXG deep carry clip up or the Lynch clip, whichever one you want. They're great. This was a gift from my wife, and I told her, I was like, I want to try Maximate, but everything in Maximate is freaking in the FRN. You can see here, you know, it definitely does get carried. It definitely does get used. I live in Kansas, so corrosion's not that big of a deal, but we are starting to see a little bit of a patina on here. I actually don't mind that. I kind of like how it looks. It really, you know, the look is indicative of how often I carry and use it, right? Spyderco Shaman was far and away the knife that I carried the most, after, you know, when I originally bought it however long ago. And it was originally in black G10. Then it kind of took a back seat to the Para 3 and only recently started to get carried a lot again after I put the Flitanium scales on it, which was something that I talked about. This knife is very close to Excalibur, right? This is a knife that I will carry. It's got a lot of money in it, and it's about to have some more money in it after I get the scales textured. I did add the MXG deep carry clip to this guy, the one that's specifically made for the Shaman. I think it's excellent. Don't care about the lanyard hole. I actually requested through Flitanium, don't put a lanyard hole in this because I don't care about it and I don't use it, right? And yeah, so I put the clip on there. I've got the titanium backspacer. This knife is just wonderful. It's super heavy, bulky. The balance is off now because of the scales. I don't care. I just don't care. I love this thing. This thing here recently has seen more pocket time than that. By the way, you can pick up the Shaman and these Flitanium scales right now, or you can pick them up in brass or copper or carbon fiber, whatever you want. It's all going to be linked down there. The knife that's been carried the most this year is the Para 3 Maximate. This knife makes it into my pocket all the time. All the time. I know some people are disappointed because it's like, we got to the end of it. It's just the same ones you've been carrying, right? I love these knives. Honestly, as time goes on, the Spyderco Shaman will probably pass the Para 3 in carry time because of how much I love this. I love titanium. I love the Spyderco Shaman. So titanium and Shaman mixed together. The only thing, I mean, once this thing is textured, it's pretty much all over for everything else in my collection unless something else comes along that I find that I like more, right? This thing has got wonderful action now. It's not quite drop shut, but it's getting there, right? I'm sure it'll smooth over time. Centering is still great on this guy. Actually, I think it centers up better than it did when I just had the G10 version. No blade play up, down, left, or right. It's absolutely solid. Love this knife. So, for 2020, the winner for 2020, you know, as far as the knives I've been carrying, is the Spyderco Para 3 and Maximate. But closing in swiftly in second place is the Spyderco Shaman in titanium. Any of the knives that are on the table, you can actually get all of these right now. You can't get that exact titanium version of the SNG, but you definitely can get an auto SNG. And despite its awkwardness, its slight awkwardness, I do recommend it. I recommend every single knife on this table, and I think you guys, you know, who decide to pick something up, one or multiple things from the knives that are left over on the table, you're going to be infinitely happy. These are excellent, excellent EDC knives. Whether you want to do budget or you want to do something in the mid-range or you want to go ultra high-end, right? Oh my God. These are excellent. Absolutely. Guys, that's going to conclude my list. Like I said, every knife that's available will be listed right down in the description. So check it out. There's lots of great stuff down there. If this doesn't do it for you, something else that I've been carrying, I'm sure, you know, there's something here for everybody. I really enjoy a wide variety of different knives in terms of different price ranges, different blade shapes, different materials, right? They're all great. You can't go wrong. And if nothing, you know, if nothing was on the list, let me know what you like to carry. That's fine. Everybody has different tastes. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let you guys take a look right here. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.